And now, to address the legal concerns of the community, Praise AM 1310, 95.1 FM presents Legally Speaking. Here are today's hosts.
So you need to record this too. Good morning, everyone. This is Nathaniel Lee. Thank you for joining us once again for an important show. We had a lot of things occur in the world and locally. And today I'll be joined by my superstar panel, attorney Milton, who famously represented Rodney King, the case that started the recording movement in the civil rights and police misconduct. And of course, our crack research analyst, master's in tax, cyber security expert, attorney Vanita. But before we get started, I need to tell you that our call-in number is 833-653-3529, 833-653-3529. So write that number down, because when you call into the radio show, the volume is not as clear. And so you can call directly into our show and it'd be a lot clearer. And now we'll start off with a quick caller for today. Caller, you got a question or comment today? This week we had a lot of things going on in the city, Indianapolis. I know we got a mayor election. What's going on?
Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. Lee, this is Flintstone. A couple of things. I called you last week talking about this political environment that we're currently getting into, and it's being, I think, elevated primarily due to the national political environment with Trump and Biden. But some things are kind of offsetting that and settling here in Indianapolis. We've got a couple of candidates running for mayor, Mayor Joe Hogsett, which most of the people in the city are familiar with, and a newcomer who was getting quickly recognized by a lot of Indianapolis citizens, this Jefferson Shreve. He's running some serious commercials that indicate that he can make some changes in the city of Indianapolis. I don't know if that's true or not, but he's using people, African Americans, to kind of endorse him. And that's somewhat surprising because I don't think people realize his record. One of the things I wanted you to address today, as we go forward into this political arena, he makes the comment that Joe Hogsett has not hired a public safety director, and he's going to do that if he's elected mayor. I'm just curious as to what a public safety director can do that the police chief of this city and the fire chief of this city and the people, we got a great prosecutor in Marion County that's doing a great job. What else could a public safety director do? And what is he trying to say about that? And why is he addressing that issue primarily towards the citizens and those inside the belt of Marion County? So
there's something very important. Something very important. Joe Hogsett was the chief law enforcement official in Indiana. He was U.S. attorney for the Southern District of Indiana. So his background says that he himself has law enforcement and also he understands policing. So to answer your question, we had a public safety director and they coordinate efforts. However, they have people within the mayor's office that does the same function. But more importantly, the person who's running for mayor has no experience at all, and his political party is what caused the problem. See, it's not like we have people from outside our community causing this. We have people inside our community who have guns. Guns are not made in Indianapolis that they're buying. They're bought into our community because Republican-controlled legislation in which the Republican candidate run for mayor supports. They passed regulations or rules that allows anybody to own guns. So now we have a lot of these people in our community that are out of control with these guns, but these guns are freely purchased now. And so you can't say the mayor or police chief for that aspect, because the guns is a problem all over the country now. America is like 3% of the world's population, but we're over 50% of private gun ownership. So we have too many guns in our neighborhoods. And so, but what's insulting though, is that it uses, I saw that commercial, it uses African-American who lost her son tragically through a shooting. Very sad. Now, you got to remember that in our city, most of the shooting now are not caused by police officers, or not caused by white supremacists, but African Americans shooting African Americans. That's a fact now. And so, but that's because we have a high incident of gun violence because we have the presence of guns. Go ahead.
Okay, so another issue along that line is that everything seems to be focused on Marion County and the city of Indianapolis and blacks shooting blacks. Yet at the same time, we have some incidents that occur outside of Marion County, and it doesn't seem to get the same, I guess, the same attention. And Shreve seems to be thinking that the only reason that we have problems in this community is because of what's going on with guns and people shooting each other in the city. And I don't know, I'm not sure how he's going to clean that up. I think it's a national issue in every major city. And maybe some of you, maybe Milton could address that, and Anita out of the Chicago area. I mean, it seems like it's not just us, although that's what Shreve's trying to make it sound like. And I think he's going to continue to do that as we go forward. At the same time, I know he's a Trumpster, and he believes in what Donald J has been saying all along. So we just need to be aware of that. So I'll stop at this point and let you get on with the show, and I'll call you in and call again next week.
Well, I'll let Milton address that in Vanita, but one thing I need to point out, what they don't cover is the large amount of death caused by fentanyl in drug use and suicide. And so in our county, the suicide rate or death by these drugs are far greater than homicide, but it doesn't receive publicity. So it's an unknown secret that more people dying in those areas, but they're not talked about because it's not reported. And you have to look at the coroner statistics to even find out that this is a great problem in our community. But in any event, Milton, you make a good point. I mean, you have the same problem in your city?
Yes. My client who had an assault weapon in his home, they found it through a search of his home because his son was on probation and it was up in his attic. He hadn't touched it in about 7 years. So we finally got the DA to reduce it to a misdemeanor, but on the condition that he had to turn in his 3 pistols yesterday that had been registered in his name, legally in his name, but he had to turn them in to be destroyed for a year to get this misdemeanor. But after that year, he can own guns. It did make sense to me or to the judge, but the DA wouldn't do any better than that with him. Flip side, a person I consider a friend, a judge, friend of mine, he and I got to know each other well. Last Thursday, shot his wife. She told him to point the gun at her. They were having an argument. He was drunk and he shot her and killed her. And this morning in the paper, they say that they found 47 weapons, guns, and rifles in his home and 27,000 rounds of ammunition. I say this to say the fact is that we got too many guns in people's hands. It goes beyond what the Second Amendment is about. It's just, I don't see the need for anybody to have 47 guns in their home, Nate, I'm sorry, and 27,000 rounds of ammunition. I don't know what the answer is, but I do see a serious problem with too many guns in this country all the time. We've been talking about this, not this year, but 10 years ago, 20 years ago. It's still the same problem. It keeps manifesting itself, and the gun industry still keeps making money. So I don't know the answer. Maybe Vanita does, being in Chicago, where guns are frequently used, even more so than LA, it seems.
Attorney Banks, Chicago, I did a trial up there about a young man got shot by a police officer. And during the trial, I found out in that one Friday night, Saturday, the experts said they had 47 shootings. I mean, I couldn't keep that evidence. It was 47 people got shot that came to this hospital in Chicago. and the expert volunteered the information. I couldn't get it struck during the trial. You know,
Nate, let me interrupt Vanita. The one thing that I guess I wanted to point out, my guy had registered all 3 guns. They knew the judge had 47 guns, and they knew he had 2 more that they didn't find. One was a rifle, a .22, and another rifle that his attorney turned in because they were all registered. So, God, man, why do you need 49 guns he had totally registered to an individual? We got to do something, but I don't know. People seem to, I stopped carrying a gun because I caught myself wanting to get it over a parking space with an argument with the guy once. And I'd made up my mind, you're not gonna whoop my butt. And if I can't handle you, I'm going to get my gun, because he was a pretty big guy. So I had to run through my mind on what I'm gonna do with this situation. But my first thought, Nate, was I got my gun in my car. And after that incident at Dietrich's coffee shop, I said, I can't carry my gun with me.
wow.
You know, we don't need this many guns, brother. I'm sorry. And I consider myself a, man, male, handle myself, but damn, y'all.
This is uniquely a U.S. problem.
Yes.
It's not a problem around the world. And I can say yesterday in a 4-3 decision, the Illinois Supreme Court upheld our state's assault weapon ban. This is common sense gun reform intended to protect citizens at their schools, malls, parks, and churches. And this legislation was introduced and passed in the aftermath of the horrific Highland Park murders last July 4th during a parade, which killed 7 people and wounded dozens of others. And so Illinois joins 9 states and the District of Columbia that have passed an assault weapons ban. And yesterday, the Illinois Supreme Court upheld the constitutionality of the act, which is titled the Protect Illinois Communities Act. They ruled that the law does not violate equal protection, nor the state's bar on special legislation. The court also held that the plaintiffs waived their Second Amendment claims, which the plaintiffs vehemently deny. And of course, this ban, there's several federal cases that are pending, and it's anticipated that this issue will reach the Supreme Court most likely during its next term. But the legislation bans specific types of rifles and handguns, and so no rifle will be permitted to accommodate more than 10 rounds, and there's a 15-round limit for handguns. And shockingly, based on a Georgetown study, more than 20 million American citizens own AR-15 rifles, these high capacity magazines, and there's just no reason why these weapons of mass destruction, and you just gave a horrifying example, Attorney Grimes, of someone with 49, I think you mentioned, of these types of guns. It's just unacceptable in a civilized society.
Why do you need a 15-shot pistol? Why do you need an assault weapon? My guy had an assault weapon that was legal years ago, and because of the ban in California, it was illegal. And when they found it, they charged him with a felony. Luckily, we were able to work a reduction of it to a misdemeanor, so his life won't be ruined with a felony conviction. But I just sat back and look at Ferguson, Judge Ferguson, and he's just a kind of a friendly guy, goofy guy, stop court every time I come in. No, Milton, come on up here. We got to talk. Y'all just wait. And he's that kind of a guy, but alcohol and guns don't mix. But it just appears to me, people got too many guns and some people shouldn't have guns, but this is a United States problem. I don't know what to do with it, Nate, but damn.
And owners under this new law, current owners of these types of weapons will be grandfathered, but they will be required, I believe, as of January 1st, 2024, to register these weapons.
I was watching a documentary on the Webb rocket being sent into space 1 million miles out to find out what's out there. And I'm so curious about that. I want to be an astronaut, but it's too late in my life. But I'm saying that to say they were boasting about 10,000 people over the world got together to get this rocket up 1 million miles in the air, further than any rocket ship has gone. We can't get a few people together to stop this gun violence. It's just ridiculous to me that we keep letting the gun manufacturers pass legislation and buy off representatives to keep this proliferation of gun sales going, Nate.
Well, in our city, and then I'll go to call in a second, in our city in Milton and in Vanita, we had the person, Republican run for mayor, is a member of NRA. So he supports Second Amendment. And so in the closet or publicly, he's in favor of adding more guns to the community. And then he'd run for mayor and do slick commercials using Black folks to say, oh, I'm going to save your community. And your political party is putting the guns in our community. It's shameful. And unfortunately, a lot of people fall for this dumb idea of somehow giving the NRA unlimited right to pollute our cities and towns with guns. It's incredible.
You can drive down Slauson Avenue, passes by my block, intersects with Crenshaw. On Slauson, where they have a sign saying the Black Beverly Hills, you're entering, Ladera Heights, Black Beverly Hills. In another block, there's a big billboard with a semi-automatic weapon on it, 6x6 or whatever size feet, and it advertised the sale of this semi-automatic pistol for $299.99. What are we doing, y'all?
Yeah, let's go to the caller. Imhotep, you got a question or comment for us about guns today?
Yes, I do. How you doing, Brother Nate?
How you doing today, sir? Yeah, you hit mute.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you hit mute.
Can you hear me, Brother Nate?
Loud and clear. Go ahead.
All right, and hello to help organize your guests, Attorney Banks and Attorney Grimes. Appreciate you.
Is this Pierre?
Can you hear me now?
No, it's Imhotep.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
okay, yeah, Brother Imhotep. Can you hear me, Nate?
Yes.
Okay, good. This country, it's just this country in the world. There's no other place around the world that has this gun problem, but this country. And we know it's bought off. We know our politicians are bought off. Look at the Clarence Thomas report again from the other day. Jurists are bought off, and they talk about having this is what gets me. They're so worried about unborn children and whatever case you want to be on it, that's fine, because I think innocent people should be protected. But then they don't want to protect the innocent people who are around here living and walking around. So how can you be pro-life? Basically, they're pro-birth, they're not pro-life. Because if you're pro-life, as they claim to be in the GOP, then they would want to do something to stop this problem. Australia did, New Zealand did. They had massive buybacks there, gave top dollar. They haven't had any mass shootings, they haven't had any problems. So the will is not here. And unfortunately, the people in charge, and this is from Imhotep, the white male hegemony that's in charge does not have the logic, reasoning, or understanding to make these changes. And that's the problem we're seeing. Matter of fact, Milton, I was out there in Baldwin Hills, which I thought was the Black Beverly Hills out there. I was out there eating
It's part
chicken and
of
waffles
it.
at Roscoe's in Baldwin Hills. What'd you say now? I'm sorry.
It's part of the Black Beverly Hills, yes.
It's part of it, right? And you're right. There are signs all out around there, Baldwin Hills and places around there advertising these things. And but when you go straight up the street and go towards Santa Monica, you don't Santa Monica Mall. You don't see that. You don't see that on Pacific Coast Highway. I didn't see any advertising of gun signs in Manhattan Beach.
Right.
I stayed in Manhattan Beach last time I was there. I didn't see any out there. You know the area, Manhattan Beach and all. I didn't see any signs in Manhattan Beach. But you're right. When you come to Inglewood and make your way on through there, it's a whole different story. I want to ask Attorney Banks her opinion of what happened to Miss Monique Worrell down there in Orlando. I listened to her. It's terrible what's going on down there. She's a dedicated prosecutor. She did bring in the George Floyd temperance with prosecuting, like our prosecutor has done here. To say she's soft on crime, I thought was a slap. To say that he supports the prison industrial complex and any little small crime you should lock black people up on. And so I wanted to hear her, being an esteemed colleague and a lawyer. My mother told me about the issues she went through when she first became a lawyer as a black woman. And so this seems to bring that right back up again when you see what happened with Miss Worrell down there. And I'll let's see your comments off there. And thanks for taking my call.
I agree with you and others that it's just totally unacceptable that she has been fired. Is that the right word, as the other state's attorney by DeSantis, arguing untruthfully and falsely that she is not performing in her role adequately and competently. From my perspective, it's a false assertion that's absolutely intolerable, and we should object to it in the strongest of terms.
Well, we see, Attorney Banks, if this was an isolated incident, maybe it get overlooked, but it's becoming a pattern. We saw the African-American prosecutor in Missouri get removed. We got one in Baltimore got indicted. So we're seeing a pattern of African-American prosecutors, and they're going after the one down in Atlanta, Fannie Willis, who likely to indict Trump. And we're seeing this becoming a pattern. Once maybe isolated, but now we see they get to these positions in Chicago. They gave that prosecutor blues for the entirety of her career.
Kim Fox.
So every major city in America that have been able to elect an African-American prosecutor woman, they've gone after her. In every case, it seems like it's not an isolated incident. I'm beginning to see this as a pattern.
Absolutely. We saw it as well. We're seeing it as well with Marilyn Mosby, who's been indicted on using her own 401k funds to purchase property. So you're absolutely right. We're seeing these targeted attacks against African-American women in these roles across the nation.
Well, if I was to reverse roles with an African-American woman attorney, then I would start to step back a little bit and reconsider my desire to be a prosecutor. And so maybe that's the strategy of this. If they knock off enough of them or attack enough, it will make people think to back off. Don't you think?
Absolutely. It creates a chilling effect, exactly how you've described, Attorney Grimes. And equally importantly, when you have a governor that is suspending public servants that have been elected by the people, that's just absolutely wrong. And it's frightening as well as anti-democratic.
And then don't you think it's the responsibility responsibility and the duty of the federal government, just like it is in any other time where a group or people is being persecuted, to step in and defend those people? But is the federal government doing that in any way?
Well, in Florida, it seems like they've gone off the rails. The Republican Party used to be a party that meant less government, lower taxes, respect for law enforcement. They believed in civil rights. You know, it was Nixon administration that came forward with affirmative action. A lot of people forget about that. So you look at the historical, now we got a DeSantis who look and feels like he's a white supremacist in terms of his ideology now and the type of things that he's doing. But more insultingly, he not only went after prosecutor, but he even went after Black history. I mean, dumb thing like, you know, slavery was a good thing. People got skill set. I mean, it's so ridiculous what they're doing. But that prosecutor's race and the removal struck a nerve with me because it's systemic of what's going on throughout the country.
My question is, does the federal government have a duty to step in and protect that individual?
I think that the government should have intervened in some of these things, but instead, it seemed like Attorney General is chasing ghosts. I noticed yesterday he appointed a special prosecutor for Hunter Biden, something that, you know, been going on for 7 years now.
Right.
So now he appoint the person who's the U.S. attorney in that district to become a special prosecutor. I have a problem with that. It seemed like to me that he's just a limp-kneed person reacting to these crazy Republicans in the House who's hell-bent on saying that we want to indict Biden because Trump got in, I mean, they want to impeach Biden because Trump got impeached twice. And what they're doing, they're trying to throw mud in the race and say, our guy's corrupt, we're going to prove that your guy's corrupt too.
Well, you know, Nate, I just recently, months ago, read this book, By Hands We Now Know, done by these two women authors who did some research on Jim Crow law and during the 40s and the 30s and the 50s, and how the government did not step in where it was appropriate as much as they should have. They stepped in lightly, but Thurgood Marshall and then were having problems getting the federal government to step in and prosecute some of the law enforcement and sheriffs who were participating with the bus drivers and the Klan and others who were just willy-nilly, with no hesitation, killing women shoppers because they looked at this clerk wrong or something, beating them to death with axe handles in the street, no prosecution. So that was wrong for the federal government not to come in and prosecute these people, even when they had witnesses to these occasions. But that's a time in history where I don't think the federal government did what all that they should have done to protect the citizenry, because it was mostly Black people who were suffering from the killings done during that period of time. So I guess that's why I kind of asked this question now, kind of sarcastically. Don't our government, or do our government, or it doesn't have any responsibility to stop the abuse of citizens in the state?
You ask a provocative and very interesting.
I'm sorry, Vanita.
You ask a provocative, interesting question, Attorney Grimes. And this is the second time that Governor DeSantis has removed an elected prosecutor from office. And he last year suspended another prosecutor about a year ago over several decisions that he made, including signing a pledge that he would not enforce the newly adopted ban on abortions after 15 weeks of pregnancy. And not the government, but the prosecutor did challenge his suspension in both state and federal court, but so far, you know, he hasn't been successful in getting reinstated. But his suspension was sharply criticized by a federal judge, Attorney Grimes. Again, the judicial branch, not the executive branch, which I believe you're referencing when you reference, does the federal government have an obligation to step in? And so, but the judicial branch sharply criticized the suspension, stating that the governor had not thoroughly investigated those actions before suspending him. But in Attorney Worrell's case, the governor's executive order included more than 20 pages of documentation allegedly highlighting problems with her office. But you raise a very interesting question.
Yeah, let's go and take one caller real quickly. Okay, Pierre, you have a question or comment about our topic today, sir?
Oh, of course, I'm gonna stay on topic, Nate. Black prosecutors have been having problems all across the country, and in some cases, it's these local U.S. attorneys that are going after them. And I clearly remember how they charged Merlin Mosby right in the midst of her campaign.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, you know, and they gave the prosecutor out there in St. Louis problems. And my question is, where's the Black community? You know, you ask for a progressive prosecutor, and then when they get nailed or when they get into some sort of problems, it doesn't seem like the Black community who asked for them to be there, supported them to be there, and they're out there charging cops and everything with crimes and stuff, and then we don't get behind them. But what I wanted to bring up to you guys, we had a spirited debate on the radio this week, you know, about the police action shooting here. What we have is appears to be a Black veteran cop having shot a fleeing suspect in the back and killed him. And I guess the debate was, you know, shooting a fleeing suspect with a handgun or whatever. And my point is, you know, it's the same thing all over again. Fleeing suspect, cop shoots him in the back. People want to know, you know, it's all on the cop and everything. And like I said, I'm one of these guys that, this in Indianapolis, fortunately, we still have a policy, I guess, where you can pursue these fleeing suspects or whatever. And my point I was making on the radio, want to get you guys' opinion. I'm glad we still have somewhat of a policy like that in this city, because in Memphis and other cities, Chicago, they're not pursuing these fleeing suspects, and I think it's contributing to crime being out of control. And what I told the audience is, I don't want to see Indianapolis get like Oakland, San Francisco, Memphis, where you've got, these people, I mean, they just out here doing the most. And, you got all of these constraints on cops and everything. But the fleeing suspect with a gun in his hand, and he gets shot in the back, is that cop going to get indicted? And I just wanted to hear what you guys thought. Thank you for taking my call.
If he wasn't in fear for his life, he shouldn't shoot the man, whether it's in the back or in the front, just because the man has a gun in his hand. So I do believe.
Oh, Milton.
Can I finish? I didn't interrupt you. I'm sorry.
Oh, Bill.
I am against violence by cops or by the citizen or by a black or green man. But if I don't accept shooting a person because they have a gun in their hand. The gun may be empty. If the guy turns and points at you, that's different. I was sitting at a stoplight with my family a week or two ago, I forgot exactly, and we heard the siren, woo, 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 and people trying to move over. It's at the intersection there, and then this car comes through, and it's doing about 45 miles an hour, and it's weaving, and about 6 police cars behind, boom, boom, boom. My question first was, where's the danger to the public? This person is not shooting out the window. They have a helicopter up there. Can't they do this another way rather than endangering people on the street, innocent people? So I don't advocate stopping any fleeing suspect. I say you got to make a judgment call, yes, but that judgment should be based upon a threat, a danger to others, innocent people. And if that person is not posing a threat to anyone immediately, I say it's best to let a few guilty people go than to kill one innocent person. So I differ with you on that. You know, I've seen too many shootings where, well, we thought he had a gun in his pocket and it turns out to be a telephone, or it was a play gun. I just think it's more to it than just saying, well, he's law enforcement and you don't have a right to flee. I don't buy that, Pierre.
Yeah, most of the cases I've seen with involving police action shooting, the victim was not a threat to the police officers. The ones that I actually see now, there are cases that occurs on a regular basis where people are a danger to police officers. I recognize that, but there's a lot of cases whereby I think that we have victims who are shot and killed unnecessarily. And one of my concerns is that oftentimes what occurs is that we don't have transparency and there's a delay in the release of evidence. You know, now in our city, we have a big push on cameras that are attached to the officer uniform and dash cams and things like that. But even that type of evidence is not oftentimes produced right away. And so it has a lot to do with the integrity of evidence. What people got to remember is that when an incident occurs, the evidence is the evidence. The evidence doesn't really change unless somebody manipulate it and create new evidence. So as a practical matter, we should have a faster adjudication of these issues because the evidence at the scene, they collected the same day. The same day these events occurred, they put out the police tape. If it happened at night, they're there the next morning and they have a clear view of everything. They take pictures of everything, the 300 photographs, they videotape. And so the point I'm making is that I think there needs to be greater transparency, particularly in these shootings, but not every shooting is a bad shooting and not every person that is a subject to police homicide did anything wrong that merit that. So, you know, it's a case-by-case analysis that you have to do, and every case is different. And a lot of people put a blanket on that, but every case that you see has a unique set of facts and circumstances.
And fleeing from police is not a capital offense, Pierre. I think endangering a person's life, you risk your life, but fleeing is not a capital offense in and of itself.
And our caller mentioned Chicago, which
That's our producer interfering from the station that was talking. Sorry about that. Go ahead.
Our caller mentioned Chicago's foot pursuit policy, and about a year ago, Chicago, after there were 2 foot pursuits that ended in officers fatally shooting a 13-year-old boy and a 22-year-old. Chicago police officers are no longer allowed to chase people on foot. simply because they run away or they've committed a minor traffic offense, for example.
Thank you for Chicago's insight and brightness.
Okay, we'll go back to the line for one more caller. Hold on one second. Okay, Emma, you had another comment. Apparently, that Pierre.
Yeah, I just wanted to call back real quick, Nate, and add a little context to that. You know how the media does when someone is shot and killed. They try to pull your record. Was a gentleman that was killed here 49. Milton, he was 49 years old, brother. No record except for a few traffic tickets when he was younger. No record, no felony, no misdemeanor charges of any sort. Just a couple of traffic tickets. That's all he had. Second of all, we have open carry here. I asked the chief personally when this law was passed. Now I have a permit, but I asked the chief personally, are you just going to go around doing stop and frisk on everyone? Because now everybody can carry a weapon. So what the media still does that is improper is that they always want to say someone has a gun, but in this state, you can carry a gun unless you don't have a felony or a dishonorable discharge or beating a woman or something like that. So none of that. He had none of that. He had none of that. So I get tired of half storytelling. Pierre, you're my brother. I love you. And the other problem is we got too many older blacks that think just like he think. Here, I've been to Atlanta and many other places, Memphis. I don't hear the calls in those cities. Chicago, near my home of Gary, I don't hear the calls in those cities or talk shows in those cities of black folks calling in like I hear the ones here who are always anti-people. The police know that they have a get-out-of-jail-free call. They know they have a get-out-of-jail-free call. And they know they can say, oh, I feared this, or I feared that, and they can just do it. Imagine if you went to work every day and you could just sit on your butt and not get paid, and you can legally do it. What kind of person, what would you do? Most people would probably take advantage of that. And a lot of them take advantage of the loophole, which is the qualified immunity. If we can get the George Floyd Policing Act passed, we would solve this problem. But this man had no record, no criminal, no felonies, no misdemeanors, or nothing. And we live in an open carry state, which you can carry a weapon as long as you don't have a felony, dishonorable discharge, or beating up a woman, and a few other things. That's about it. And thanks for taking my call.
Wow. Well, the call makes a lot of points, Milton, but the bottom line is that the importation of weapons in our city is not a local issue. It's done by the state. Our state has passed a draconian law that allows people to own guns that probably shouldn't be owning guns. It's just ludicrous, you know.
This particular judge that I mentioned earlier, he was a 30-year prosecutor. I had cases against him. That's how we developed a relationship. And so he was a prosecutor for 30-some years, and you know, he had all the background warranting owning a weapon, but he had 49. Nate, come on, there's too many guns out here. There's too many people with guns. I don't know how you get them back from them, or how you stop people from making their ghost guns, but there's something wrong with our psychic, man, to think we have to have guns like the old West, you know.
I got a question for Vanita. I was looking at this article and they were showing the downtown Chicago area in the museum, and they point out their safe place and that. I was just curious, I didn't think about that. Is the large volume of shooting like in Chicago, or do they come from certain areas of the city, or is it geographic of the whole county?
Predominantly more in Black neighborhoods. That's where most of the shootings come from, to my understanding, in terms of what's reported in the news. But that has proliferated to other areas as well, not necessarily shootings per se, but robberies, in neighborhoods where you would never think these things would be happening, in or around Michigan Avenue and the Gold Coast, for example, these flagrant robberies where, these rings burst into, high-end stores, Louis Vuitton, Gucci, and others during broad daylight, right? And conduct these armed robberies. And in areas like River North, where people are just being accosted on the street and just robbed again in broad daylight. But I would say that, so it's becoming, it's an endemic problem. But if you look at just pure numbers, the majority would be in Black neighborhoods, unfortunately, neighborhoods of color, let me say that.
Is that similar to what you experienced in LA, Milton?
Well, you know, the economics of the neighborhood has some effect upon people being, you know, criminal. The immediate, wanting immediate satisfaction, and you know, I deal with a number of young people, and we have a mentality amongst many of our young people today to want immediate gratification and satisfaction of their desires, and not willing to put in some of the work necessary to earn or get certain things that they want. And it's more immediate to snatch this watch that may look like a Rolex, but it's only a $300 watch made by Boss, I think, or one of them, Carbs or something. But, you know, they go for the immediate. You know, the mentality is one of immediacy. They satisfy their urge. I'm sure you see it among some of the young people around you, because that's what they see in entertainment. That's what they see in the music. That's what they see in the movies. So we got a mentality we got to deal with, y'all. I think, I don't know, guys, I'm just speaking off the top of my head and ain't much left. But
well, here in the city of Indianapolis, back in the 70s and early 80s, we had large plants like General Motors, Ford, Chrysler, Western Electric, that employed thousands of people, had high earnings capacity. And these folks, you didn't have to have a college degree. They made good money and they're union workers. And at that time, the homicide issue in the city was relatively low, maybe only a fraction of what it is today. But as time passed, the state of Indiana, when one of the most telltale things that occurred is during the Obama administration, when the state got about $6 billion out of that Obama package. And they took those high-paying jobs, like the wind farm, stuff like that, and they put in place like white counties. So the investments were placed outside of the urban areas. And so the high-paying jobs, when new companies come to the state, they go to Greenberg. They give them special deals and tax incentives. So what has happened is that we've seen minorities gravitate towards the city. At the same time, we've seen the resources that support that is being abated. It leaves the city. And so what we have left is that we have people who are then working on jobs that have lower pay if they get the jobs. And so we have a different economic base. And I think that's probably what you see in a lot of other cities too, is that the lack of these high-paying jobs and careers within the inner city is one of the factors that I think is fueling this uptick in violent crime.
right. There's a relationship to it, I think. Plus the change in culture, you know, get it now. Kind of culture. I don't know. Smarter people than me have to figure this out.
You know, like when Vanita's in Chicago, when I go through Chicago, like in the South Side, you know, every now and then, I went through a few neighborhoods. I did not see the presence of large business enterprises in the minority neighborhoods. I just didn't see it. If they're there, I didn't see it.
That's true, Attorney Lee.
And see, so if you don't have the ability to, you know, if you're out working every day and earning good money and you're too tired to go out, or you don't have the necessity to go out and rob anybody because you make good money at work. And I wish that we spend billions of dollars in these foreign countries and things like that. I think we have to start to solve this problem. I think we have to start directing some of these resources back to our own cities now more than ever to try to solve this problem. That is that we have to have good, sustainable source of employment that pays good money in our inner city. We have to have more of that as a starting point.
Well, racism destroyed Black Wall Street in Oklahoma in
Yes.
1921. We saw that. But there's been that happening in a more subtle way throughout this country, that Blacks can't build and maintain the economic base to provide the job and care for its citizens like other races have done. So let's face the reality of it. This is still the effect of racism on us as a people. I think it has a lot to do with it. And people may say, I'm playing the race card. You're damn right I'm playing the race card. Because I see anywhere I go that a 1% Black population has a 30% prison population in that state or in that county. And so it's something wrong with those figures. And I think it's the result, has a lot to do with systemic racism. Y'all can think what you want.
Well, let's get a comment from one of our caller, Pierre. You got a comment about this topic. Pierre, you're live now.
I just wanted to get Milton's comment on the NAACP up in Oakland screaming for protection for the community. I mean, what's the answer? I mean, they're short cops. There's been a pullback, and crime is just through the roof. And I'm glad I don't live in Oakland. But I just wanted to get Milton's perspective on that. Thank you for taking my call.
My perspective on what, Pierre?
On Oakland.
The NAACP's called screaming at the city to do something about crime.
I don't blame them.
Major announcement.
Do something about crime, but do something about it. Don't just come through and surface code it. Do something about the depth of what's causing this crime. What is putting people in a state of mind to commit crime? You go to the source, go to the underlying cause. That's all I'm saying, Pierre. And don't just snatch up a bunch of people and put them in prison and say, we're solving the problem on crime. The problem, the cause is still festering. So you got to go a little deeper than just arresting people. That's my position.
Well,
Thanks.
thank you. I'd like to thank everyone in our calls for calling in today. We reached the end of our show today, and I'd like to thank our superstar panels and all our callers, and also you, the listening audience. Don't forget that next Saturday we'll be back on the air again, and don't forget the call-in number. Until then, may God bless and keep you until we talk next week. Take care, everyone. Have a blessed day. Bye.
The weekend is for relaxing. You always get me fired up on a Saturday morning, and then I can't up and relax during the week. And
Okay.
stop doing this show shit.
Take care.
Have a great day, gentlemen.